Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Tuesday, April 30th. I'm Abby Larico. The work of Colombian artist Delcy Morelos makes connections between political bloodshed and the degradation of the natural environment.
The same disconnection that make us being violent with each other is the same disconnection that make us being violent with the nature and with the landscape.
St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin reports on a rare solo exhibition of the artist's work, now on view at the Pulitzer Arts Foundation. That's coming up on The Gateway. Washington University officials say campus police are still investigating a weekend protest that led to about 100 arrests of pro-Palestinian protesters. As of Tuesday morning, the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has not received any arrest information. On Saturday, police arrested more than 100 protesters on campus. WashU Chancellor Andrew Martin said Monday he expects all will face trespassing charges. He said some will face resisting arrest and assault charges as well. A university spokeswoman says she expects the cases will be filed with the county. The prosecutors demanded the private university cut ties with Boeing because the company has ties with Israel. They also called for the end to the ongoing war in Gaza. WashU leadership says they respect free speech, but the protesters broke university policy by setting up an encampment. A Missouri House committee on Monday dismissed an ethics complaint against Speaker of the House Dean Plocher. As St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Kellogg reports, the chair of the committee attempted to read an email sent to her about the ethics investigation.
Members of the committee voted 7-2 Monday in favor of dismissing the complaint against Plocher. Representative Hannah Kelly, who chairs the committee, originally motioned to dismiss the complaint due to the committee's inability to complete the investigation, quote, as a direct result of obstruction of the process and intimidation of witnesses, unquote, by Plocher. Kelly also attempted to read an email sent to her about the investigation. The committee both stopped Kelly from reading the email in committee as well as amended the motion to strip out the obstruction allegations. Kelly has been repeatedly criticized by supporters of Plocher for her handling of the investigation. In Jefferson City, I'm Sarah Kellogg, St. Louis Public Radio.
A longtime conservative political activist is firing back against allegations he illegally coordinated with Darren Bailey during the former Illinois state senator's unsuccessful run for governor in 2022. Capital News Illinois reports the State Board of Elections held a public hearing on the case Monday morning. The hearing was triggered by a complaint from the head of Illinois' Democratic Party. Dan Proft heads up the conservative People Who Play by the Rules PAC. The Democratic Party of Illinois accuses Proft and his PAC of coordinating with Bailey's campaign through a backroom meeting and through Bailey's appearances on Proft's radio show. Bailey's lawyer rejects the accusation, noting that the state's rules on what constitutes coordination are unclear. They also argue that there has been no precedent for this kind of complaint. The Board of Elections is expected to issue a decision in the coming months. Red light cameras are coming back to St. Louis. Mayor Tashara Jones promoted the new law in a social media video posted over the weekend. City officials say changes to this bill will prevent red light cameras from being outlawed for a fourth time. An additional bill Jones says she will sign requires the Board of Aldermen to monitor police use of surveillance technology. Alderwoman Laura Keyes, who represents the 11th Ward, says she feels conflicted about the new law.
It's not going to stop the kids who've stolen a car, the person who, it's not their car, and so I think that it's necessary. We got to do something.
Cameras are turning back on throughout the city. They will capture images of the license plate and vehicle, not the driver's face. The Centene Corporation donated its $25 million Ferguson Claims Center building to the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis. The league plans to use the building to expand services and provide access to more healthy food options beginning in June. St. Louis Public Radio's Andrea Henderson reports.
The 60,000-square-foot former managed care claim center is the Urban League's largest single donation. Centene set up its Ferguson Center as a response to protests after the killing of Michael Brown Jr. in 2014. Centene wanted to create more jobs in the area. Now the Urban League plans on using the space to supply the community with more outreach programs and child care services. It also will house a food pantry. Michael McMillan is the Urban League's president and CEO.
It really is going to be a transformative building where we'll be able to do so many things.
This space will be the league's fourth location in Ferguson. I'm Andrea Henderson, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Missouri History Museum's 1904 World's Fair exhibit is now open. Officials say they expected a large crowd and required registration to the free event. Tickets sold out for both Saturday and Sunday slots. Sam Moore is the managing director of public history for the Missouri Historical Society and says the newest exhibit is 20 years in the making. The reimagination includes original artifacts and recreations to tell the complicated history of the 1904 World's Fair, including extensive racism toward attendees and participants.
How to wrap your arms around the fact that these really hard conversations and problematic conversations and events are happening at exactly the same time as the Ferris wheels and the cotton candy of it all.
The longtime exhibit closed in 2004. Colombian artist Delcy Morelos makes work that meditates on our relationship with nature, particularly in places where conflict over the land has left a legacy of blood. Her show, now on view at the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, is just her second solo exhibition in the U.S. As St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin reports, it offers a unique opportunity to see how Morelos weaves together materials like paint, textiles, and buckets of dirt to make her point.
Rival paramilitary groups have fought for control of Tierra Alta, Colombia through much of its history. Delcy Morelos grew up there amid the bloodshed with her grandmother, a descendant of the Emberá, a people indigenous to Colombia and Panama. Morelos lived in a mud hut and early on got the lifelong knack for weaving her clothes. Textiles, soil, blood, three things that loomed large in her upbringing and now appear throughout her work.
Hola, soy Delcy Morelos. Sí son importantes en mi trabajo porque desde el
I
mismo
believe
lugar
that
donde
the same disconnection that make us being violent with each other is the same disconnection that make us being violent with the nature and with the landscape.
Her show has a sprawling centerpiece made from dozens of 8-foot-high sections of metal fence and 3 tons of St. Louis soil. Assistants spent 2 months in a dark studio on Locust Street, turning that soil into 3-inch clumps of mud they then stuck onto the fences in careful rows. A few days before the exhibition opens, St. Louis-based assistant Moira Smith runs a paintbrush over a piece of dried earth.
I'm putting a sealing coat. It's like painting a glaze over the earth layers, and this has the red iron oxide brick dust in it. It helps to protect the vulnerability of the dirt underneath because it's pretty fragile, actually.
Finally assembled, Morelos' installation now sprawls through the largest gallery at the Pulitzer. It's a sort of maze that visitors walk through. For the artist, the piece is ultimately personal.
del mismo color de la tierra. Todavía cierro los ojos y
My
veo
grandmother's skin is the same color of soil, and I close my eyes and I can notice that resemblance, and the sort of peace I felt when she hugged me is the same type of embrace I feel when I'm outside nature.
After making paintings, drawings, and sculptures for a few decades, Morelos has achieved international renown in just the past 10 years or so. Pulitzer curator Tamara Schenkenberg organized the show.
She's also thinking about the human being as a weaving, reminding us that after all, we're all nature. Like we think of ourselves as separate from nature, but we in fact are all interconnected with the planet, with soil, with everything that surrounds us.
In one gallery, a swirling abstract painting in shades of red could be an overhead view of Colombian topography, but it's made from individual dots of color, each representing a person killed by violence. A painting of a rectangular pattern looks like woven fabric, but its pink and crimson hues suggest human tissue and blood. When I asked the artist what questions she'd like to spark, she says she wants to create a feeling.
Porque hay un lenguaje que es más allá de las palabras.
There's a language that goes beyond words, and is the sort of emotion that we feel when we are in presence of a sunset or when we smell the soil after a rain when it's damp. And I think that that's the sort of emotions that I want to celebrate in these exhibitions, language beyond words.
Es la que debemos sentir siempre cuando vemos todo.
This is the first exhibition in the U.S. to pair one of her big soil installations with older pieces. Finally seen together, Morelos' work weaves a conversation that speaks through its silence. I'm Jeremy Goodwin, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our David Cazares edited that piece. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.